Before we begin our descent into darkness tonight, I ask you, traveler, if you find comfort in these tales, if the slow echo of forgotten lore helps you rest, then leave behind a small mark, a subscription, perhaps, or a whisper in the comments below. Tell me which creatures you wish to learn of next. There are more than you think. The dead are listening. What is undeath? It is not simply the absence of life. It is not death continued. It is a refusal, a denial of nature, a protest against time, a scream that echoes long after the lungs have rotted. In every culture, in every kingdom, in every era, there have been those who could not let go. Some were too angry. Some were too afraid. Some were simply too powerful. And so the world learned of undeath, not through science, not through choice, but through accidents, curses, and horrors best left buried. The breaking of the cycle. In the oldest texts, life is a wheel. Birth, growth, death, and rest. Undeath is the crack in that wheel. The spoke that doesn't fit. The soul that staggers back when it should have gone forward. Some say the gods created undeath as punishment when mortals tried to cheat the afterlife. Others say undeath was born from mortals refusing to let others go, binding souls with love that turned to poison. Whatever the case, the undead do not rise on their own. Something, or someone, always brings them back. A ritual unfinished. A grave disturbed. A necromancer's whisper. A war that never ended. Where grief festers, where blood soaks the earth, where names are spoken with too much longing, undeath finds a way. What it is not. Let's be clear. Undeath is not resurrection. Resurrection brings back the soul with consent. It requires faith, sacrifice, divine favor. It restores. Undeath is theft. It borrows the soul, or the body, or both, and twists them. Even when the undead remember who they were, they are never quite the same. Their dreams fade. Their voice grows hollow. The seasons no longer matter. And if they linger long enough, even pain becomes a distant memory. Who can become undead? The terrible answer, almost anyone. A child buried in grief too deep. A warrior who died cursing the gods. A mage who refused to let death interrupt their studies. A queen betrayed, still gripping the knife in her ribs. A peasant whose bones were disturbed by a careless grave robber. Undeath plays no favorites. It touches both the noble and the forgotten. Sometimes the undead choose to return. Other times, they are summoned, forced, crafted like weapons. They may not even realize they've died. Some awaken in their graves, gasping for breath they no longer need. Some rise in silence, memory flickering like a candle in the wind. Others never went down at all. The body, the mind, the soul. Undeath can take many forms, because it plays with the three parts of being. 1. The body. Animated corpses. Bones that move without muscle. Faces frozen in their final scream. Zombies. Skeletons. Wights. 2. The mind. Ghosts that whisper in the wind. Shadows that laugh. Wraiths that carry memories like knives. Not truly here. Not truly gone. 3. The soul. Liches. Revenants. Vampires. Undead who maintain will and intelligence, but twist them into something colder. Some undead possess only one of these aspects. Others, like liches or powerful vampires, keep all three, trapped in an eternal contradiction. They think, they remember, they move, but they no longer live. The hunger. One of the most common traits among undead is hunger. Not for food, not for love, but for something missing. Zombies hunger for motion, never stopping. Ghosts hunger for closure, never forgetting. Vampires hunger for blood, never satisfied. Liches hunger for knowledge, never fulfilled. Revenants hunger for vengeance, never forgiven. This hunger defines them. It drives them. It replaces the warmth that death took away. And when you meet them, you'll see it in their eyes, even if they have no eyes left to show it. Why the dead return? Sometimes it's a curse, sometimes a ritual, sometimes just pain that won't let go. But in every story of Undeath, there is always a question. What did this soul want so badly that death wasn't enough to stop them? And that is what makes the undead so terrifying. Because in the end, they are not monsters. They are echoes of us, of our regrets, of our rage, of our love that curdled. They are the stories we refuse to end. Chapter 1: Skeletons and Animated Bones. They rattle. They do not breathe. And yet, when they march, you feel your blood turn cold. Not because they move, but because they shouldn't. The simplest form of undeath. Of all the undead, skeletons seem the least threatening. No flesh, no mind, no personality. Just dry bones, strung together by old magic and stubborn purpose. But simplicity does not mean weakness. It means efficiency. Skeletons don't scream. They don't hesitate. They don't need air, food, rest, or warmth. They obey, and that makes them perfect soldiers. How they are made. A skeleton does not rise by accident. Bones do not simply stand up and decide to walk. Something, or someone, calls them back. The process is old, older than most spells. Necromancers use binding runes, chanting sigils, or ritual components such as ash from the grave of the unburied, blood mixed with powdered bone, names spoken backwards at midnight. When the magic takes hold, the bones tremble. Joints click into place. Eye sockets glow, sometimes red, sometimes blue, sometimes nothing at all. Then they rise, and they wait for command. What remains of the soul? In most cases, nothing. A skeleton is usually mindless. It moves by rote, following orders, patterns, simple tasks. There are exceptions. Some bones carry echoes. If the body belonged to someone particularly willful, their skeleton may retain habits. A skeleton of a blacksmith might still swing in perfect arcs. A soldier's bones might form ranks unbidden. A mother's bones may reach out to cradle an empty space. These are not thoughts, not memories, just residue, like fingerprints on glass. Do not underestimate them. They do not tire. They do not bleed. They cannot feel pain. You can cut them apart, only for the pieces to keep crawling. Some skeletons are enchanted with weapons, bound to their bones. Others are wrapped in rusted armor they wore in life. In mass numbers, they fight without fear, without chaos, without panic. And if one breaks, the necromancer simply raises another. Variants of bone. There is more than one kind of skeletal horror. Over centuries, necromancers, warlocks, and darker things have twisted the base form into nightmares. Bone golems, constructed from dozens of skeletons, shaped into a tower of arms and jaws. No mind, no mercy, only crushing force. Burning skeletons. Their bones are wreathed in green or black flame. The fire does not consume them, but burns those nearby. Often found guarding cursed tombs. Bone serpents. Spines rearranged, skulls fused together. Massive skeletal serpents, often guardians of ancient temples. Slither without muscle, rattle with rage. Horn Knights, once paladins or warriors, now raised and infused with infernal magic. Their helmets fused to the skull, their sword arms locked in eternal battle pose. Each variation tells a story. Each is shaped by the purpose it was made for. When they remember, rarely, a skeleton is not mindless. Occasionally, a soul becomes trapped, not fully departed, not fully alive. The skeleton becomes aware. Not quite a lich, not quite a revenant, just bone and memory. They don't speak often. When they do, the sound comes from no mouth, just the echo between their ribs. One such creature once wandered a ruined chapel, whispering prayers. Its fingers traced the stone pews. It placed rusted coins on an altar that no longer held light. It did not attack. It did not flee. It simply remembered that it had once believed. How to stop them? Skeletons can be shattered, but they are not easy to stop unless you understand what binds them. Here's what helps. Bludgeoning weapons, bones crack under blunt force. Holy magic disrupts necromantic ties. Salt circles prevent reanimation. Naming the dead. In some traditions, speaking the full name of the deceased can release their spirit. But beware. If you destroy a skeleton raised by a living necromancer, that master may simply raise it again. To stop the bones, you must end the one who commands them. The final note. There is something deeply unnatural about a skeleton standing. We are meant to see them in stillness, in burial, in respectful rest. To see one move is to be reminded. Something has gone terribly wrong. The dead should not walk. Their bones should not fight. And yet, they do. And somewhere, someone is smiling in the dark. Because they made it so. Chapter 2, Zombies, Rotting Tools. They stumble. They groan. They stink. But they do not stop. That is what makes them dangerous. Not speed. Not cunning. Just inevitability. What is a zombie? A zombie is a corpse that walks, animated by necromantic energy or infernal will. Unlike skeletons, zombies still wear the skin of death, often bloated, torn, or blackened with rot. They are slow but strong, clumsy but relentless. They do not speak. They do not question. They do not care who you were. To a zombie, you are warm. That is reason enough. How are they made? There are many paths to zombification. Necromancy. A practitioner of dark magic may reanimate the dead with blood rituals, foul incantations, or cursed artifacts. The most common method in the world of spellcasters. Cursed ground. Places soaked in war, betrayal, or forgotten gods sometimes birth zombies without a caster. The land itself remembers. Plague. Some regions speak of a contagion, a death-borne illness that spreads zombification like a disease. One bite, one scratch, and the warmth begins to die. Unfinished business. In rare and tragic cases, the soul does not fully leave. A murdered lover, a betrayed soldier. They rise not from spells, but from pain. What remains inside? Almost nothing. Zombies are driven by base instincts: movement, hunger, noise, warmth. But sometimes, just sometimes, fragments flicker. A soldier zombie that still marches in formation. A mother zombie that won't attack a child. A zombie that stares at a locket in its own pocket. These moments don't last. They're echoes, like muscle memory of the soul. And when they pass, the hunger returns. Behavior and threat. Zombies are not hunters. They are swarms. 1 zombie is easy to escape. 5 are manageable. 50 will crush a village. 100 will erase a kingdom. They do not fear. They do not break ranks. They do not negotiate. They walk through traps. They walk through arrows. They walk through fire, if their legs still carry them. Even if you cut one in half, the arms will claw. The mouth will bite. The torso will drag itself towards sound. Variants of the dead. There are many flavors of rot. Plague zombies, covered in boils and infected wounds. Their touch spreads illness. Some explode upon death, spreading disease clouds. Juice zombies, enhanced by dark alchemy. Bulkier, faster, stronger, but less durable. Often used by mad scientists or warlocks. Cursed lovers, 2 corpses bound together, often holding hands or stitched at the spine. Their pain empowers each other. Wounding one enrages the other. Marionette zombies, controlled by spectral strings. Eyes roll back, limbs twitch unnaturally. Puppets of something unseen. Each variation is worse than the last. Each whispers of a new kind of cruelty. The tragedy of zombies. Unlike ghosts, zombies do not grieve. Unlike vampires, they do not charm. Unlike skeletons, they do not forget, because there's nothing left to forget. They are corpses with no voice. But the tragedy lies not in what they are, but in what they used to be. Every zombie was someone. Every rotting face once laughed, cried, prayed, begged. Now they claw at doors, gnaw at limbs, moan into the night, and those who love them may hesitate 1 second too long and be lost. Can they be saved? Rarely. Some ancient rituals can restore a zombie if the soul is trapped nearby. Priests of certain deities may attempt to reclaim the spirit, but most are too far gone. And even if they could be restored, would they want to remember what they did? How to stop a zombie? Zombies are easier to kill than many undead, but only if you know how. Fire burns the rot and prevents reanimation. Severing the head disables motor control. Divine spells disrupt necromantic energy. Holy water/blessed salt weakens their flesh. But remember, zombies do not retreat. Even if they're burning, even if they're crawling, they will come until they are ash, or until you are. Final warning: do not pity the zombie. Pity the child who hides under the bed while her family turns. Pity the village that locks its gates, knowing it's already too late. Pity the world, where death is no longer the end. Zombies are not evil. They are not cruel. They are not aware. But they are death made flesh. And they remind us, the body is just a cage. Sometimes it forgets that the soul is gone. Chapter 3: Wights and Ghouls. Hunger with memory. They walk like men. They see like men. They remember being men. But they are not. They are something colder, hungrier, twisted beyond death, but not beyond thought. Unlike skeletons or zombies, wights and ghouls are not just moving corpses. They are cursed will, unholy desire in rotting form. And when they come for you, it is not mindless. It is personal. The rise of the wight. Wights are undead who refused death, not by accident, but by decision or curse. Long ago, a warrior fell in battle, cursing the gods for abandoning him. His rage festered. His soul turned inward, and when his corpse was buried, it dug its way back out, sword still in hand, oath still on his lips. This was the first wight. They are not common. You do not find them in shallow graves or plague pits. Wights are forged by hate, betrayal, or dark bargains. They walk, they speak, they plot. They lead lesser undead like generals, commanding skeletons and zombies like pawns. But make no mistake, they are not alive. Touch a Wights blade, and your life may drain in an instant. Face its eyes, and you may feel it judging you, as if your death was already measured and found wanting. The curse of the ghoul. Ghouls, by contrast, are not born of hatred, but of hunger. They are what happens when a soul succumbs to the primal urge to feed on flesh, even after death. Some were cursed. Some were driven mad by famine. Some were just too weak to die clean. Their skin is pale and tight. Their claws long and dirty. Their teeth broken and sharp, like they chewed through their own tombs. But worst of all, they still enjoy it. A ghoul does not simply feed. It savors. It licks the marrow from bone. It drags out the kill, not out of necessity, but out of some awful echo of pleasure. Are they intelligent? But in different ways. Wights are cold and calculating. They remember tactics, alliances, grudges. Some can even speak with terrifying clarity. Ghouls are cunning, like wolves in a graveyard. They hunt in packs, lay ambushes, and remember faces. Neither is mindless. And that's what makes them dangerous. A ghoul may pretend to be dead. A wight may set a trap day in advance. And both can lead others, turning lonely ruins into killing grounds. The taste of souls. Both creatures hunger, but not for food alone. Wights hunger for vitality. When they strike, they can steal life, draining the strength from your body and adding it to their own. Ghouls hunger for flesh and fear. They are drawn to the scent of the dying. The more terrified the prey, the more excited they become. Some legends say ghouls grow stronger with each body consumed. Others speak of wights who remember the last words of every soul they've taken, whispering them in the dark. Variants and nightmares. Necromancers and demon lords have crafted improvements. Dreadwight, wrapped in black armor, eyes glowing with green fire, carries the memories of 10 lives and the deaths of 10,000. Speaks in riddles and executions. Guess, a bloated, more powerful ghoul. Emits a stench so foul it paralyzes the living. Their bite carries disease and despair. Bone-crowned wight. An undead king or general. Leads legions of skeletons and lesser wights. Often found seated on a rusted throne in forgotten crypts. Grave dancer. A ghoul who moves like a shadow. More agile than most men. Can mimic human voices to lure prey into ancient mausoleums. Each variant adds a layer of horror. Each one suggests someone made them that way. How to fight them. You cannot simply swing wildly. Wights resist common weapons. Blessed blades, radiant magic, and forceful strikes are needed. They are warriors in Undeath. Treat them like duelists. Ghouls can be burned, but be careful. They swarm. Never let yourself get surrounded. Carry light. Carry fire. And for the gods' sake, watch your back. Spells of protection, divine blessings, and even litanies of the dead may weaken their grip. But once marked by them, you may never sleep peacefully again. What they represent. Wights are about refusal. I was wronged. I will not rest. I will return. Ghouls are about surrender. I was weak. I craved. I consumed. Now I am become hunger. Both are born from broken humans. Not monsters. Not spirits. But people who lost themselves in extremes, rage, or appetite. Chapter 4: Vampires, the Living Dead. Of all the undead, none are as feared or as fascinating as the vampire. They wear death like a coat, elegant, polished, immaculate. They move through the world not with rot, but with charm. And yet, beneath every fine word and every graceful step lies something ancient and cruel. Vampires are not merely undead. They are alive in death. And that is what makes them so dangerous. A living contradiction. The skeleton is dead. The zombie is dead. The ghost is dead. But a vampire? A vampire breathes even if they do not need to. They speak, they think, they scheme. They pass for human in candlelight. They dance. They flirt. They command armies. And yet, they are not truly living. No heartbeat. No warmth. No soul that rests. They are beings sustained by the blood of others, not just for nourishment, but for identity. They feed to remember what it was like to be human, and they keep feeding because they are afraid to forget. Origins in shadow. Where do vampires come from? There are many tales. A mortal king who begged for eternal life and received only eternal thirst. A cursed lineage born from the union of a demon and a dying queen. A divine punishment where beauty and grace mask rot within. No one truly knows. Or if someone does, they've been drinking quietly for centuries. Hierarchies of the undead. Among the dead, vampires rule. They are not raised by accident. They are chosen or turned or born. A skeleton obeys. A ghoul feeds. A wight remembers. But a vampire plots. They are generals, lords, seducers, cult leaders. Some live in castles. Others in cities, disguised among nobility or clergy. Where others of the undead destroy, vampires preserve, but only what benefits them. They do not seek apocalypse. They seek control. What they fear. Despite their power, vampires are not invincible. Sunlight burns them, not like fire, but like exposure. It reminds them they do not belong. Running water repels them, not for its purity, but for its refusal to be controlled. Holy symbols, sacred ground, truth, these things crack the mask they wear. And worst of all, love freely given. Not lust, not obsession, but true, unconditional connection. They do not understand it. They cannot feel it. And so they destroy it. Why they matter? Among all forms of undeath, vampires are the most tragic. Because they know what they've lost. A skeleton does not care. A zombie does not notice. A ghoul forgets what life even was. But vampires remember it all. The taste of food. The warmth of a kiss. The feel of tears they can no longer cry. And so they surround themselves with mirrors, music, and masks. They build houses full of laughter they cannot share. And when the night falls, they feed. Not out of hunger, but to pretend. You may already know their story. You may have heard it whispered in the first volume of this chronicle. But remember, a vampire is never just a monster. They are a warning of what happens when we choose power over peace. When we fear death so much that we become something worse than dead. Chapter 5: Ghosts, Spirits, and Phantoms. They do not walk. They drift. They linger. There is no rot. No claw, no bite. Only the silence that follows grief. Only the weight of a name spoken one too many times. Ghosts are not born of dark magic. They are born of memory. And that makes them the most human of all the undead. What is a ghost? A ghost is a soul that could not move on. Not a zombie raised from flesh. Not a vampire cursed with thirst. Not a wight forged in rage. A ghost is a question left unanswered. Why did I die? Where is the one I loved? What happened to my child? Why do I still feel? When a person dies with pain so sharp, love so deep, or trauma so violent, the soul sometimes stays, not out of choice, not out of power, but because it cannot let go. How they manifest. Ghosts take many forms. A whisper in the hallway, a cry in the forest, a reflection that doesn't match your face, a song heard when no one else is near. Some ghosts are clear and full, visible in robes or the form they wore in life. Others are nothing but flickers, shadows, cold spots in the air. They are tied to places, objects, or people. A ghost may haunt the house where they died, or the blade that killed them, or the child they left behind, until something gives them rest. They will remain. Why they remain? Ghosts stay for many reasons, and not all are tragic. Revenge. They want justice. Vengeance. Closure. Some were murdered. Some betrayed. Some silenced. They remain to protect. A lost child. A beloved. A home. They stay not because they were wronged, but because they cannot bear to leave. Confusion. Some souls do not understand that they are dead. They repeat their final day like a broken song, over and over, unaware. Binding. Some are kept by force, by necromancers, cursed ground, or magical objects. Their sorrow is not their own. Echoes of the dead. Ghosts do not age. They do not forget. They replay the past like theater, hoping someone is watching. You may see a woman in a window, combing hair that isn't there. A knight in rusted armor, kneeling to a god long gone. A child playing with toys that have long since turned to dust. These are not illusions. They are memories stuck like thorns in the veil between life and death. To a ghost, time has no meaning. There is only the moment of their death and everything they lost. Variants and legends. Ghosts come in many forms, shaped by how they died and how they felt. Wailing spirit, often a mother who died in grief. Her scream can shatter glass, or the mind of the living. Phantom guardian, a soul who swore an oath, never broken, even by death. Stands vigil over a tomb, a gate, or a battlefield. Toshid appears only in dreams. Leaves cold breath on your neck. Often a warning spirit, not malevolent, but urgent. Bound apparition, tied to an object. Moves when the object moves. Often follows those who unknowingly carry cursed items. Each ghost reflects a story unfinished. Each one asks, would you remember me? Would you listen? Can they be freed? But it is rarely simple. To release a ghost, you must answer its question. Find its killer. Bury its remains. Speak its name where it was forgotten. Deliver the letter it never sent. Say the goodbye it never heard. But take care. If the ghost does not want to leave, it may fight. Not with strength, but with sorrow that suffocates. With memories that replace your own. How to protect yourself. Ghosts are not flesh. You cannot stab them. You cannot cage them. But you can resist. Circles of salt, pure and grounding. Holy words, reminders of peace. Mirrors. Some ghosts fear being seen clearly. Firelight, soft flames, not to burn, but to remind the room of the living. Above all, listen. Ghosts are drawn to silence. They fill it with what they miss. Speak kindly. Speak clearly. And never promise something you cannot deliver. The sad truth, most ghosts do not know they are feared. They do not want to harm. They want to be heard. But time warps them. Pain sharpens them. And when they cry out too long without answer, they forget why they stayed. And then they become something worse. Not a memory. Not a story. But a wound. In the shape of a person. Chapter 6, Liches. Undying minds. They do not groan. They do not hunger. They do not rot, not entirely. They wait, they study, they remember. And when you enter their domain, they already know your name. What is a lich? A lich is not a cursed soul. It is not a mindless corpse. It is not a victim of undeath. A lich is a choice. A mortal, usually a wizard or scholar, who willingly severs their ties to life in exchange for eternity. Not immortality in the body, but immortality of will. A lich does not fear death. They have already conquered it. The making of a lich. The path is long and terrible. First, the would-be lich must embrace death. Not by accident. Not through battle. They must die intentionally. Then they perform the rite of the phylactery. This ritual binds their soul into an object, called a phylactery. A ring, a gem, a book, a tooth, a vial of blood. So long as the phylactery remains intact, the lich cannot truly die. Destroy the body and it will reform. Shatter the bones and the eyes will glow once more. Their soul is safe, tucked away like a candle in a locked room. What do they want? Knowledge, control, legacy. Liches do not crave flesh. They do not miss love. They have moved beyond such things. But they desperately seek understanding. Of magic, of gods, of time, of the weave behind all things. Many liches were once sages, librarians, professors, kings of thought. But something inside them whispered, "You do not have enough time." So they made time, endless time, appearance and presence. A lich may resemble a skeleton wrapped in tattered robes. But do not be fooled. Their eyes glow with unblinking intellect. Their voice carries centuries of certainty. Their magic does not miss. Their very presence bends the air. You may feel cold, or heavy, or small, because to a lich, you are not a threat. You are a curiosity, lair and defenses. Liches rarely wander. They remain in strongholds, ancient towers, forgotten catacombs, libraries carved from mountains. And their homes are not idle. Walls listen. Statues watch. Doors ask questions, and only open to correct answers. They surround themselves with traps, riddles, puzzles, not just for defense, but because they are bored. You are not just a trespasser. You are entertainment. The phylactery, the heart of the lich. A lich guards their phylactery better than any treasure. Sometimes it is hidden across the world. Sometimes placed in plain sight, disguised as a mundane object. To kill a lich you must find the phylactery, break the wards around it, destroy it utterly. Only then can you face the lich and hope to make death permanent. Variance and madness. Not all liches remain stable. Time wears on even the strongest mind. Demlic, the final form of decay. No body, only a floating skull adorned with gems. But its soul remains, and its power condenses. It no longer speaks. It thinks in waves of will. Whisperlich exists partially in the astral plane. Voice is barely heard. Body flickers like smoke. Spells come silently and precisely. False lich, someone who mimicked the ritual, but failed. Their soul is torn. They scream for centuries, often confused with banshees or cursed revenants. Elder Archivist, a lich who has lived so long that it no longer remembers its own name, only the books it guards, may protect knowledge more than its own unlife. Why they matter? The lich is not a monster. It is a mirror. That's what would you sacrifice to never be forgotten? What would you give to finish your life's work? What if death is only for those who lacked the will to refuse it? It is tempting, terrifying, and familiar, because all of us in quiet moments wonder, what if I had more time? The Lich had that thought, and made it real. Now it waits in the dark, and studies, and learns, and waits for someone clever enough to deserve its attention. Chapter 7: Revenants and the Cursed Ones. Vengeance beyond death. They do not scream. They do not hunger. They search for one face, for one name, for one final moment. And when they find it, the world shakes. What is a revenant? A revenant is a soul that clawed its way back into the world for one purpose: retribution. Not justice. Not redemption. Vengeance. They are not summoned. They are not created by necromancers. They are born of betrayal so deep or a wrong so vile that death itself cannot stop them. Their body is a shell, sometimes their own, sometimes borrowed. Their soul burns like a furnace behind cold eyes. They do not forget. They do not forgive. They do not fail. How they return. Revenants rise when a knight is betrayed by his own brother. A child is murdered by the one who promised protection. A lover is abandoned in the hour of greatest need. And they refuse to rest. Their return is not dramatic. No thunder. No fire. They simply wake up in the dirt or the dark and begin walking. They always know the direction. They always know the face. Their body may be cracked. Their limbs may drag. But their will is pure. Powers of purpose. What makes a revenant powerful is not magic. It is certainty. Their abilities vary, but most revenants possess unnatural endurance. They cannot be killed by conventional means while their mission remains. Tracking. They always know where their target is, no matter the distance. Immunity to fear, for what can frighten the dead who already faced the end? Some can step through shadows. Some can burn with divine rage. Some can even speak with the dead, asking for help or clues. They are singular in purpose. And until that purpose is fulfilled, they cannot be stopped. The weight of the curse. Being a revenant is not a gift. Each day they remain in the world, they feel themselves decay, not physically, but spiritually. Their emotions dull. Their memories fade. They become more vengeance than person. And when the task is done, they do not celebrate. They do not return to peace. They simply vanish, like a candle snuffed out. And if the mission is never fulfilled, they rot in place, screaming silently into eternity. Other cursed dead. Not all who return are revenants. Some are bound to the world by different forces, equally tragic. The moaning dead. Souls cursed to relive their death. They do not seek vengeance, only to be seen and understood. The Hollow Knight. Once a paladin, now empty, rides endlessly at night. Seeks the traitor who shattered his oath. Bride of Thorns. A murdered bride who walks forests and riverbanks, searching for her wedding day. Attacks any who resemble her killer. Tongueless prophet. A seer who was silenced in life. Now speaks only in blood-written signs. Appears before catastrophes. Each cursed soul is a story unfinished. A wound still open. And each one carries a message. Some endings refuse to end. Can they be helped? Rarely. A revenant cannot be reasoned with, but they can sometimes be guided. Reveal the truth of their death. Show that their vengeance was already served. Offer forgiveness from the one who wronged them or from their own loved ones. But it is dangerous. If the revenant believes you're standing in the way, You become part of the mission, and you will not survive it. Why they terrify? Revenants are not evil. They are not monsters. They are reflections of our regrets, our guilt, our unspoken truths. They remind us that the past never dies quietly, that actions echo, that betrayal has a weight, and sometimes that weight walks back to us in the night. A final warning. If you ever hear slow footsteps in the dark, if your name is spoken by someone who should not know it, if the candle flickers though there is no wind, do not run. Face it. Listen. Because the dead do not rise for nothing. And if a revenant comes for you, you already know why. Chapter 8. Death Knights and Undead Lords, Thrones of Bone. They wear armor, not rot. They ride nightmares, not memories. They do not stumble like zombies, or whisper like ghosts. They command. Their eyes are flame. Their voice is thunder. Their presence is war. These are not creatures of undeath. These are kings of it. What is a death knight? A death knight is the corpse of a once noble warrior, often a paladin, champion, or general, who fell from grace and was cursed for their betrayal. They are not animated by accident. They are judged by gods or powers beyond, and condemned to eternal undeath. But unlike skeletons or revenants, death knights retain full awareness, skill, and often remorse. And yet, they march. Origin stories. No two death knights are the same, but all share one theme: fallen greatness. A paladin who broke their oath to protect a loved one and watched both perish. A warlord who abandoned the field only to return and find his army slaughtered. A king who made a pact for power and cursed his bloodline for eternity. Their death is never peaceful. Their return never gentle. Appearance and power. Imagine a suit of armor, long rusted, still gleaming with dark enchantment. A blade too heavy for men, carried like a feather. A shield that has seen 1,000 battles, all lost. Their body is withered, but their stance is proud. Their voice echoes, deep, slow, measured. They do not raise their weapon in rage. They raise it in judgment. Death knights command magic as well as steel. Necrotic smite, strikes that drain life from the living. Aura of despair, weakening those who stand against them. Commanding the dead, summoning skeletal legions with a word. They are both knight and necromancer, both ruin and ruler. Undead lords. Even more powerful are the undead lords, beings who have ruled over undeath so long they have become legends. They are often liches who ascended to kingship, vampires who control empires, death knights who built fortresses from bone and ash. Their domains are vast, black fortresses where the sun never touches the stone, cities of the dead where skeletons serve tea and zombies till fields, cathedrals where priests preach to ghosts. They do not just exist, they govern. Their armies. Undead lords and death knights never stand alone. They are surrounded by blackguard captains, loyal knights who died with them, bone golems, hulking constructs of fused skeletons, soul-bound acolytes, living cultists who serve death willingly, frost hounds, wolves of undeath who leave no tracks, only silence, and behind them, a host of the dead, an army that never sleeps, never eats, never questions. Can they be reasoned with? Sometimes. Some retain fragments of honor. Some remember a life before damnation. You may find a death knight who refuses to kill the innocent, or an undead lord who offers parley before war. But beware, their word is iron, their patience is short, their mercy is not forgiveness, it is postponement. And should you lie, they will never forget. How to stand against them? Few can, but they are not invincible. Holy relics, objects from their life may shake their will. Sacred oaths, broken vows can be used to unravel their strength. The truth, reminders of the life they left behind may splinter their power. But even then, slay the Death Knight, and his armor may rise without him. Burn the undead lord's body, and his spirit may haunt the throne for eternity. Victory is never complete. What they represent. Death Knights and undead lords are not just powerful. They are monuments to ambition without restraint, to loyalty corrupted, to oaths twisted into chains. They stand at the edge of unlife, not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to break the rules and bold enough to accept the cost. They are death with memory, power without heart, a legacy carved in tombstone and terror. If you see one in the distance, do not fight, do not speak. Remember, because in that moment, you are a story they haven't written yet.